Throughout the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and now 2020s, Apple have released an updated iMac model pretty much every year. Some of the latest parts inside an all-in-one case refined time after time. But the iMac Pro was different. Apple managed to cram the most powerful full-size PC parts into the exact same form factor as their standard iMacs, with a special edition space grey finish. And the beauty is, only one version of these monster computers was ever released, starting at $5,000. It came out 8 years ago now, in 2017, but the iMac Pro's parts make it considerably powerful even now. The top-end iMac Pro CPU is the Intel Xeon W2191B. It was arguably the most powerful processor money could buy in 2017, with 18 cores and 36 threads. Its base clock speed is 2.3 GHz, with it able to boost up to 4.3. That kind of clock speed was pretty damn good for the time, but it's the core count that's really impressive. All 18 cores are what we'd now refer to as performance cores, each able to run at maximum speed and power. Apple's M4 Max, to use a current example, has up to 16 cores, but only 12 of them are full performance cores. The other 4 are efficiency cores for keeping the power draw low when you're not doing anything too performance heavy. The M4 Max is more powerful than the Xeon chip by all standards. It uses technology that's 6 years newer. But because of the insane core count and pretty decent clock speed, this iMac Pro's W2191B has been able to keep up pretty well over the years. Its multi-core performance is just below the M1 Max and M3 Apple Silicon chips released in 2021 and 2023 respectively, but I'll go over real-world tasks like editing and gaming a little bit later. The iMac Pro uses 2666MHz DDR4 RAM. It has 4 internal slots for a maximum of 512GB of memory. I probably don't have to tell you this, but 500GB is an insane amount of RAM. I have the same amount of storage inside the MacBook Pro this video is being edited on, and that means the entire video alongside all the other data on my MacBook could be stored inside this computer's short-term DDR4 memory sticks. RAM capacities of that scale are mostly used in server builds, where lots of data can be moved extremely quickly if required. By the way, the RAM is user upgradable on this machine, and you just need to get the screen off, which is a scary task I won't be completing today. But once that's done, there are standard RAM slots you can just buy aftermarket memory for on the inside. By all means, 512 gigs is possible regardless of how much RAM you bought this thing with initially. I got the lowest tier model, which came with 32GB. It doesn't seem like a lot compared to 512, but I think it'll be plenty for me and for most others really. Graphics on the iMac Pro are an interesting story. Apple used pretty much standard desktop GPUs from AMD inside these computers. It's a mystery how they made them fit inside the all-in-one case, since the iMac Pro isn't any bigger in size than the regular 27-inch iMacs Apple sold at the exact same time. There are 3 GPU options for this computer which annoyingly aren't user upgradable. AMD's Vega 56 is the base option with 8GB of dedicated HBM2 video memory. Then there's the higher-end Vega 64 model which has 16GB. HBM2 memory was hotly anticipated going into 2017 as it offered a real jump in bandwidth versus the GDDR5 standard that most other graphics cards used up to that point. So as a result, the Vega 56 and 64 cards performed quite a lot better than people had expected from Team Red upon their release. The Vega 64 was actually very close to knocking Nvidia's 1080 Ti off its spot as the king, with HBM2 memory one of its main advantages. There was also a special Mac-only version of the 64 available inside the iMac Pro called the Vega 64X, with around 10% better performance than the standard one. So I was kind of surprised by the actual performance of the graphics in 2025. I've got the base Pro Vega 56 card inside my iMac Pro, and it's capable of running a surprising number of titles at the full 5K resolution of this 27-inch display. Notoriously hard to run Metro Exodus ran brilliantly, albeit downscaled to 1440p. I'll show you some more games in just a minute. Because it's a workstation PC built into Apple's biggest ever iMac case, we've got some pretty cool features that just aren't found on your average computer. Firstly, the screen is absolutely mind-blowing. 5K at 27 inches is very, very high quality. Displays haven't really got much better than this even after 8 years. Beyond that though, Apple's colour reproduction is sublime. I have a pretty decent 1440p Dell display which I do my editing on normally, and I've always said the colours are pretty good on that. But this is something else. Playing games on this made me realise how much I'm missing out on. Another unique feature is the networking ability of this thing. There's an Ethernet port on the back of the iMac Pro which is 10 gigabit capable. This is very useful if you're in video production and need to move a lot of files around fast from online servers. Of course, it does depend on the speed of your network. I personally don't even have 1 gigabit Ethernet yet, but the capability is there should you need it. The connections on the back aren't limited to networking though. There are 4 USB 3 Type A ports for connecting to older style accessories, alongside 4 Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports. Because they're Thunderbolt enabled, you can connect displays through the latter, with this Mac supporting up to 4 external 4K screens, or 2 5K ones plugged in all at once. Even for 2025, that is very good display support. Think about it, that's a maximum of 4 4K screens running alongside this 5K one. So let's talk briefly about upgradability. As I mentioned, this iMac Pro does use standard memory slots, so you can replace the RAM modules yourself up to 512GB. Amazingly though, the CPU inside this machine is socketed too. You can remove the Xeon processor and put another one in if you like. You are going to be stuck with the 2017 Xeon generation, as you can't just change the entire socket, but if you start with a base 8-core model, you can go all the way up to 18 cores just by buying the better CPU on its own and swapping it in. Let's look at performance now. I've currently got Windows 10 installed on this thing alongside the main installation of macOS Sequoia. Windows 10 runs incredibly well actually. This thing might as well be a Windows PC for all intents and purposes. I just installed it using Apple's Boot Camp tool, and the drivers took about 30 seconds to install, which they did do automatically. I installed Windows to run games on, which this thing does impressively easily. These aren't new titles by any means, but I ran Borderlands 2 and Wolfenstein New Order at a solid 60 FPS. The settings did have to come down to medium to make 5K work, but as I've said, it is a hell of a display quality for any graphics card to drive. Graphics heavy Metro Exodus ran at medium settings scaled down to 1440p. Overall, I'm very happy with the Vega 56's performance. For an 8-year-old CPU, and a base model at that, this 8-core Intel Xeon W2140B impressed me. It doesn't heat up or struggle at all running Windows 10 or macOS Sequoia. Browsing the web went flawlessly, and so did using default apps from each OS. Gaming was more GPU bottleneck than anything else, so it also did well there. Video editing was pretty good too. I tried Final Cut on the iMac Pro using the same project settings as I would on my main device, the M1 MacBook Pro. While some software is known for taking advantage of GPU-based rendering, most of the work goes through the CPU in Final Cut Pro. So yeah, the edit went pretty smoothly. For things like stabilization and rendering, I could tell I was on an older generation processor, but for the most part this is a very viable editing computer in 2025, as long as you're not doing film-length edits in 4K. The thing is, every time I use the iMac Pro, I get this weird feeling. It's like I can tell I'm on last-gen hardware. The screen turns on and apps open maybe half a second slower than on Apple Silicon devices, and sure, that's not a long time, but it does add up and contributes to how it feels to use the computer on the whole. Also, some features like Apple Intelligence and support for certain games just aren't available for the Intel platform. So the iMac Pro is a weird one in 2025. It's quite literally one of a kind, and I can't help but love it for that. It's among the best looking Macs of the 21st century too, in my books. Beyond that though, when it comes to getting real life work done on a super tight schedule, I don't think I'd rely on an 8-year-old iMac Pro every day. Let me know your thoughts on this machine though, as it's still got incredible graphics performance and a design that rivals pretty much any machine out right now. This is the first video I've made where I feel rushed to get all the details in without going way over that 10-minute mark. If this video does well for views, I am without a doubt making a follow-up, as I could go on and on about things like the OS support, storage, speaker quality, power consumption, and pricing. For now though, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe for more of the same, and of course consider buying a Patreon membership if you do have the means and like coming back to watch my videos every week. I'll see you next time.